Morning, my friend from Philadelphia. How are you?
What's going on? Skip Bayless, I have a question.
Oh, boy.
What the hell is that shirt that you're wearing? What is that,
It's
Skip?
a little out of your price range. It's Mario Caldi right out of Manhattan, and it's actually a little out of your style range because the lovely Ernestine picked it out for me. It will start to set a trend, and it probably doesn't fit in the rather stodgy wardrobe of one Stephen A. Smith.
I'm not, you know what? I could come back, but Skip is masterful, Kerry. He disarmed me because he brought up Ernestine.
Yes.
So I can't say a word.
I know.
Nice shirt, Skip. Nice shirt.
I looked at it and I go, is that new? Must be nice. And I knew Ernestine picked it for you.
Did you know?
I felt that, yeah.
I had a good joke to get at him until he brought up Ernestine.
I
can't do that.
Come on, let it fly.
I
dare you.
I dare you.
You'll get a text from Ernestine in about 4 seconds.
No.
He's afraid of Ernestine. The only woman he's afraid of. All right, guys, look, let's stay focused. Coming up on the show.
I'm afraid of her, too.
We discussed the no-no. Dodgers ace Clayton Kershaw with a no-hitter. Impressive or not so much. Plus, is Greg Popovich the greatest coach ever?
Ever?
Ever. High praise coming from a legend about the Spurs head coach. We'll debate that. But before we get to those topics, gentlemen, I must let our viewers know, our fans know, that today is our last day on the show before we go on vacation for a couple of weeks. Darn it.
They're forcing us to go.
They're forcing us to go because we don't want to go. Stephen A.
Not me. Not me. I'm voluntarily going. I'm voluntarily going. I'm out. I'm out.
Okay, he's excited, as am I. Much deserved.
Yes.
We're working hard. We have been working hard. But before we actually leave, we know when we come back, a few things will have happened. Some decisions will have been made. So we'll talk about free agency. After losing the finals, many speculate LeBron wants help or out of Miami. James, being called the most powerful free agent, will decide if he will leave Miami or stay put. So when we return in July, Stephen A. Smith, where do you think LeBron will be? What will he do?
Well, obviously, the caveat that needs to be thrown out there is that between now and that period, over the next couple of weeks, anything can happen in terms of deals that could be made to facilitate a transaction on the part of Miami, New York, or anybody else. But in light of the fact that I don't anticipate that really being able to happen, I'm going to say that LeBron James will remain with the Miami Heat. I think that Cleveland is not a franchise that can be ignored simply because of LeBron's desire, his family's willingness to go home if indeed he decided to do that. I think it's something that they would embrace. But the Miami Heat are a first-class organization. They find a way to get things done. I don't anticipate that D. Wade is going to go anywhere despite all the things that have been said. And I think that when you look at it from that perspective, the fact that I have faith in Pat Riley and Mickey Arison and what they do as an organization, that Eric Spoelstra is just a bright young coach who will only get better and better and better. When you look at from a geographical purpose, from, just Miami being what it is and what have you, it would be pretty difficult for me to imagine that LeBron James will leave. Cleveland is still a possibility, but I just see people flocking to LeBron and Miami, assuming they're able to create enough room to do some things, rather than it being LeBron electing to leave elsewhere. At this moment in time, right now, anything can happen over the next 2 weeks in terms of deals being made, but right at this moment in time, right now, I would have, if I had to bet my money, it would be on LeBron staying in Miami.
Before I answer this question, I must say, I am fascinated to hear what we hear from Pat Riley in his State of the Union coming up at 11 a.m. today, Eastern Time, and we will be reacting on this show to what he says or doesn't say, especially about Dwayne Wade. Now, to literally answer Kerry's question, when we return on July 7th,
July 7th,
where will LeBron be? I think he will still be in a state of flux. I think that, again, he can start negotiating July 1st, and feel free to disagree, Stephen A., but even though I don't think we will have the decision this time, I think we will have the process that we've seen again and again from LeBron James, by which he will meet with several teams methodically, slowly, surely, He will play the field. He will play all of our emotions. I think he will bask in the attention and the glory of being what you have called the most coveted free agent ever. Brian Windhorst has called him that on this show. Wouldn't you agree with that? Most coveted ever?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
So won't LeBron string us all along in not a bad way, but in his way? He can be the drama king, and I say that in a very positive perspective. But I think he will take his time on this. I also agree with you. I think he will come full circle and stay with Miami. That's just a gut feeling. I have no inside info on that. But to me, Bosh is only 30 years of age. Dwayne, for all the mileage on his knees, is only 32 years of age. And I believe Dwayne Wade will do everything in his power through this offseason to get his knees the best he can get them going into next year, and maybe to get a little fitter going into next year. So we step back and say, what advantage would Miami have next year? Well, listen, they didn't just lose the NBA Finals. They got embarrassed. They got humiliated and annihilated in ways never thought possible that the big three could get humiliated and annihilated. So finally, they should be driven next year in ways they've never been driven before, because all of a sudden they should embrace being the hunter for the first time in 4 years, 5 years, as opposed to being the hunted that they were from the start. So I like LeBron in Miami, but I do think, and Avery Johnson's very strong in this, you know, Avery's starting to lean toward LeBron going back to Cleveland. And I made the case yesterday. I believe Daryl Morey will make a very convincing pitch to LeBron to go to Houston. And I think he will think hard about going to Houston, but I'm with you. I think ultimately, and it may be on July 8th, 9th, 10th,
whatever
LeBron,
day,
just wait at least until the 7th till we get back.
Okay.
Because we need you on the 7th, right? Maybe he'll give us a virtual decision on this show on the 7th.
Yes, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right, Stephen A., anything to say to that?
Well, it's interesting that Skip brings that up because, see, I don't think that LeBron is going to look to leave to go anywhere other than Cleveland. Obviously, Houston can make a case, and we all know that, because you got Dwight Howard and James Harden. You've got a case. There's no question about it. But I think that ultimately it's one of those situations where I'm not convinced Chris Bosh is going to stay. I think that Chris Bosh, even though he's going to be owed $40 million if he opts in, I think it's entirely possible that Chris Bosh, he could go out there and get another $80, $90 million deal, whether it's from L.A. or somebody else, even a Houston, for crying out loud. Think about Chris Bosh in Houston with Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
Just pay attention to something like that and what he could do. You got Houston, you got Dallas, because that's where he's from, and what they can do, because they owe Dirk Nowitzki some help. Rick Carlisle is an exceptional coach. He knows what he's doing, but he did a lot with what he has. They could use, you know, somebody of Bosh's experience and talent to pair with a Dirk Nowitzki. Now, that's not the most muscular front line or the most fiercest front line, but at the same time, they could be highly productive on the offensive end of the floor because they could put the ball in the hole. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of Chris Bosh leaving. If Chris Bosh leaving, that creates space. If it creates space, that's space that they could use to bring on somebody else marquee, which would be even more attractive for LeBron James to want to stay. And I think one of the things that Dwayne Wade has learned, and if he hasn't learned yet, he needs to learn this, is that guess what? Rather than come 2 games, miss another game or whatever the case, get that knee operated on and miss the first half of the season. Be out from now until January, February, or whatever the case may be, because it's really about the long haul for him. And if you're LeBron James, you don't want Dwayne Wade in and out. You'd rather him be out and stay out until he's ready to come back and be all in. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's the way that you would like it to do. So if you've got that kind of plan, which I'm pretty sure that Pat Riley would have, then I think it's something that you entertain. I think it's something that's incredibly attractive to you, and I think it's something that you should think about doing. And that's why I think that LeBron is going to stay, because if there's any organization that would have that kind of plan in place, it would be Miami.
Okay. On Dwayne's knees, if in fact they are arthritic, then no operation will help cure that. But you could be right, because I have heard from several people, in fact, some of the Spurs were saying that Dwayne had indicated he needed some other kind of surgical procedure, that he didn't get the right one. So God bless him. I hope he does get whatever is best for him and his knees.
He's planning.
Okay, now that's fascinating what you say about Chris Bosh.
Yeah.
I had not thought about that. How would that then impact LeBron's decision? I don't know how much he values Chris Bosh as the quote-unquote third wheel of the big three. You know,
Listen. I don't want to be negative because that's not what I'm not trying to come across in that way. But it is clear that the relationship that LeBron James has with Dwayne Wade is different than the relationship he has with Chris Bosh. And that's not to say he doesn't like Chris Bosh, that he doesn't enjoy him as a teammate, that he hasn't befriended him. I'm not trying to imply anything of the sort. I'm simply saying that there's a different level to the relationship that he has with Dwayne Wade than he has with Chris Bosh. And as a result of that, it's not a matter of wanting Chris Bosh to leave or whatever the case may be. But let's say, for example, if Dwayne Wade said, and I'm not trying to say this is going to happen, but hypothetically speaking, if Dwayne Wade said, I'm going to retire, LeBron would look long and hard as to whether or not he's going to even be in Miami. That's his man. If Chris Bosh leaves, my man, I wish you well. Nothing but love for you, bro. Make it happen. Go make that money.
Last quick thought on that.
It's a difference.
I read, and I think it was the Miami Herald, that Birdman, Chris Anderson, says he's going to go elsewhere. So if they did hypothetically lose Bosh and Chris Anderson, this was one of the worst rebounding good teams we've ever seen. Man, they would be so small. They'd have to really find out.
Not at all. Not at all, Skip, because you're not losing them for nothing. If they walk away, that's just money for you to go out and get something else.
You better go big.
So that's what of course you're going to get somebody else, but ultimately in the end, it's going to give you the maneuverability that you're looking for, because that's really the question mark. Think about this. If LeBron James was sitting there approaching free agency with Miami, and Miami had a bunch of cap space to do what it wants, LeBron wouldn't be worried about a thing. Because you know people are going to want to come to Miami, and you know people would love to play for him, with him. It's just a matter of whether or not you're Miami and you could do it without digging into everybody else's pockets, asking them to take pay cuts. That's the trepidation here. That's what all the controversy is about.
Stephen A., you bring up a good point. You said even if LeBron stays, the big three may or may not stay intact. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. LeBron and the rest of the Heat big three have until June 29th, obviously, to make that decision to opt out. Let's move on and talk about Carmelo Anthony. Reportedly,